in part 2, we're going to start working from M files. So before we start, we need to download these example files to the home directory, and then we need to set the path. So I'll just walk through how to do this. So the best way is to right-click the file and then save it to somewhere on the directory. Now, it's good practice to set up a folder to have all your files in. So I'm going to create a new folder, which I'm going to call Matlab files. And I'm going to save my files into this. So I first save function example, and I will now save loop example. So I right click it, save the target as that, and save it in there. Okay, so when I now go to Matlab, what I want to do is run function example. However, if I do this, way, I get this error. It says it's an undefined functional method function example. This is because Matlab only knows about files that are on its path. So what I need to do before I can run this, I need to set the path. And this is under the file menu. So if I go to file, then to set path, you can see that it knows about any M files that are in all these different directories. So what I'll do is I'll now add the folder which has my M files in. So I go to add folder. For me it's in here, so this is the folder. I'm going to add that, and I'm going to save the path and close it. You may have problems if you're on a public computer saving the path, as the default for Matlab will try and save it somewhere. I think we'll normally try to save it somewhere which you're not allowed to save it to. So just save it to wherever it prompts you to. When you're on your own computer, this should be okay. Okay, so I close that. Now when I run function example, it knows what the file is. Okay, so if we want to work with function example and see how it works, the best way is to open the file in the Matlab editor. You can do this in two ways. You can either type edit function example, which will load the Matlab editor here and load the file. Alternatively, you can just go to the open window from here and navigate to where your files are and open them. So, once we've opened them, we can start to play with it. Now I'm just going to rearrange my windows a little bit because I don't like the way these are done. I'm just going to put the command window, move this to here. I'm actually just going to get rid of the command history, and then I've got my function example there, and I've got my command window to the right. I mean, you can set things up however you like. This is just for me. Now, the best way of working through functions is to use the debugger. For those of you who haven't used a debugger, it's just basically it's a way of being able to step into a program and look at what's happening. The Matlab debugger's very nice and simple. The way one does it is to set what's called breakpoints. These are points where when you run into when you start running the file, the function, the Matlab will stop at this point. So I've set a breakpoint here. So if I now run function example as I did before, it will go into the file and it will stop here, and you can see it's indicated by this green arrow. Now this allows me now to look at what's happening within the program. So you can then basically work through things line by line and see what happens. You can do this in two ways. You can sort of hover over bits that are in the variables that are in the program. So I entered A and as 2 and B as 3, and we can see what they are. You'll notice if I hover over the sum, nothing happens. That's because this hasn't been instantiated yet as a variable. The other place you can do things is you can do things in the command window. Notice the command has now got a K before it. This indicates it's in sort of debug mode. It's live within the program. So what I can do is I can ask for what the value of A is. It will tell me it's 2. I can multiply A by 3. It will give me the answer. One very handy thing within the debugger is that you can highlight a line, and if you evaluate the selection, it will run that line. So if you've got a line which is causing you problems, you can run bits of it to see if there are errors within it. You can also evaluate the selection by pressing F9. The other thing that one can do with the debugger, which is very handy, so once one's in, we can step through a line, or you can step into a function, or you can step out of it, or you can exit debug mode, or you can run, which will run to the next breakpoint. So if I just continue now, then the function will end. You can see now that if I hover over the sum, it has a value, and now it will just continue to the end. So this is a very useful way of running through the programs that you have. You can step into them, you can evaluate things, you can make changes as you go, and see what happens. Feel free to play with that. One last thing is that one very useful thing is in the debugger, on this menu, you can ask the program to stop if there's an error or if there's a warning. This is very handy. If you're having a problem with your code, this will then stop where you get an error. So say I've asked Matlab to do something bad, for instance, let me just see, sorry. If I've asked Matlab to do something it can't do, so for instance here, I asked Matlab to add A plus B to C, but I haven't defined C. Now when I run this program, I'm just going to save it. Remember, you have to save to remember the thing. So if I run this program now, this will have an error here. So I'll just turn this off for a second. So in the standard way, it never stops if there's an error. So this is the kind of default mode. So if it would run through that, it would tell me I had an error here. One handy thing about the Matlab error is if you click on where it says it will jump to the point where it has an error. However, often this isn't exactly the right point, and what you want to do is go into the thing as live. So what you can do is when you're debugging your program, if you tell it to stop when there's an error, when I run in now, you can see that it's stopped at the point. It's kind of checked out the line, realized there's an error there, and stopped. So now I can go in and I'm live within the program. I see that A's okay and that B's okay. So I can check out that A plus B makes sense. However, when I hover over C, I see that there's no value. So if I do C, I see, okay, so C's undefined, so I know what the problem is. Okay, so that's how the debugger works. Have fun and carry on with part 2.